Sunday, January 25th, 2026. And as I was pulling up today's lesson, I had this moment of, wow, it's already the 25th of the month and the 25th day of 365 days. And it's always at the end of the year where we feel like the year has gone by so fast. And so before I hopped on, I just took a deep breath, and I want to live so intentionally today. You know, we can only live as intentionally as we are aware. And so with that, I am going to do a review of every lesson that has gotten us up to this point, and then I will dive into lesson 25. Lesson 1, I see nothing in this room. No. Lesson 1, nothing I see in this room means anything. Lesson 2, I've given everything I see in this room all of the meaning that it has for me. Lesson 3, I do not understand anything I see in this room. Lesson 4, these thoughts do not mean anything. They are like the things I see in this room. Lesson 5, I am never upset for the reason I think. Lesson 6, I am upset because I see something that is not there. Lesson 7, I see only the past. Lesson 8, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Lesson 9, I see nothing as it is now. Lesson 10, my thoughts do not mean anything. Lesson 11, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Lesson 12, I am upset because I see a meaningless world. Lesson 13, a meaningless world engenders fear. Lesson 14, God did not create a meaningless world. Lesson 15, my thoughts are images that I have made. Lesson 16, there are no neutral thoughts. Lesson 17, I see no neutral things. Lesson 18, I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my seeing. Lesson 19, I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my thoughts. Lesson 20, I am determined to see. Lesson 21, I am determined to see things differently. Lesson 22, what I see is a form of vengeance. Lesson 23, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. Lesson 24, I do not perceive my own best interests. Lesson 25, I do not know what anything is for. Purpose is meaning. Today's idea explains why nothing you see means anything. You do not know what it is for. Therefore, it is meaningless to you. Everything is for your own best interests. That is what it is for. That is it as its purpose. That is what it means. It is in recognizing this is your goals that it is in recognizing this that your goals become unified. It is in recognizing this that what you see is given meaning. You perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of ego goals. Your goals have nothing to do with your own best interests because the ego is not you. This false identification makes you incapable of understanding what anything is for. As a result, you are bound to misuse it. When you believe this, you will try to withdraw the goals you have assigned to the world instead of attempting to reinforce them. Another way of describing the goals you now perceive is to say that they are all concerned with personal interests. Since you have no personal interests, your goals are really concerned with nothing. In cherishing them, therefore, you have no goals at all, and thus you do not know what anything is for. Before you can make any sense out of the exercises for today, one more thought is necessary. At the most superficial levels, you do not recognize purpose. Yet purpose cannot be understood at these levels. For example, you do not understand that a telephone is for the purpose of talking to someone who is not physically in your immediate vicinity. What you do not understand is what you want to reach him for, and it is this that makes your contact with him meaningful or not. It is crucial to your learning to be willing to give up the goals you have established for everything. The recognition that they are meaningless rather than good or bad is the only way to accomplish this. The idea for today is a step in this direction. 6 practice periods, each of 2-minute durations, are required. Each practice period should begin with a slow repetition for today's idea followed by looking about you, letting your glance rest on whatever happens to catch your eye near or far, important or unimportant, human or non-human. With your eyes resting on each subject you so select, say, for example, I do not know what this chair is for. I do not know what this pencil is for. I do not know what this hand is for. Say it quite slowly without shifting your eyes from the subject until you have completed the statement about it. Then move on to the next subject and apply today's idea as before. I'm going to go back up, y'all, and read the first two paragraphs again, because to be honest, this is each one of these lessons have really built on each other in so many ways over the last 24 days. And this one just feels it feels different for me, and I really want to reread it for my own sake, and then we can dive into talking about the lesson. I would love, I'm looking here in the chat, and I'm live on a couple different places, but if you guys have any comments around this, I would love for you guys to share anything that is meaningful to you. I'm just looking here in the chat. There's a lot of questions about whether this is AI or not. I am live, although someone told me yesterday that somebody, like, you can put someone else's face on your face, which is terrifying. So if you want to cross-reference me, you can look up Christene Marie on Facebook, Instagram. I'm real. But for now, I'm going to go back and reread the first two paragraphs for those of you who are just joining. A Course in Miracles is something that I started reading, frankly, for my own sake at the beginning of the year. You know, I want to keep with this habit for myself. And the more that I'm able to just do that with you, the more accountability I have. So I am going to go back and read the very first two paragraphs one more time. But before I do, just want to give a quick thank you for joining forever. Good morning. Thank you for joining. Graham, Mosquito, thank you for coming on here. Justin, this is live, actually. It's not pre-recorded, and I'm not AI. Dama, XJ559,000, thank you for coming. Real Me, I do. But let me go back to the first couple of sections. Feather Brain, thanks for coming on here. Zenjamin, Robert, Comet Candies. I'm going to go ahead and read the first two paragraphs one more time. So lesson 25, I do not know what anything is for. Purpose is meaning. Today's idea explains why nothing you see means anything. You do not know what it is for. Therefore, it is meaningless to you. Everything is for your own best interests. That is what it is for. That is its purpose. That is what it means. It is in recognizing this that your goals become unified. It is in recognizing this that what you see is given meaning. You perceive the world and everything in it as meaningless in terms of ego goals. These goals have nothing to do with your own best interests because the ego is not you. This false identification makes you incapable of understanding what anything is for. As a result, you are bound to misuse it. When you believe this, you will try to withdraw the goals you have assigned the world instead of attempting to reinforce them. Wow, I'm so grateful I reread this because it holds so much more than it did before. I do not know what anything is for as a lesson. And you know what's funny, y'all? As I've been reading through A Course in Miracles at various times, I think about 80 lessons consecutively last year. Every single day I was doing, 80 or 100. Like, I made it pretty far and then stopped. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing this with you, because my commitment is we will do 365 days together. And it's challenging to read at times because this book confronts our ego. And so if we want to hold on tightly to our ego, it's like we're clinging tightly to it, and it's threatening. Like, this book is pulling our ego away from us, and we're like, wait, no. Even the fact that, and this is the part that really was meaningful to me, is that everything that happens, it changes everything when you and I hold a belief that everything that happens is for us. That way, literally anything that happens, we hold the belief like, okay, I don't know how or why or what the end goal is going to be, but I believe that this is going to be for me in some ways. And I also believe that this is for the other person and other party involved. There's a firm belief. My dad actually told me this one time, and on Sundays we talk about spiritual intelligence, and said this is apt and timely. My dad once told me, he said, if you can just believe that God is good. And that's a belief that's really, really challenging. And I know that each one of us holds a different experience in relationship to that concept. And so the emotion that arises at the thought of that concept, I think, is actually really important for each one of us to dig into. Why do you not believe that? Like, why would you believe it? And I believed that God was good because nothing bad had happened to me. And I didn't know that. I thought that until my brother-in-law was killed. And at that point, then it's once it actually gets hard, once the going actually gets tough, it's like, wait a second, what do I believe? Because everything I believed before was contingent on my life and how I was experiencing the world, rather than what is a capital T truth that stands outside of time, that stands outside of my own personal experience. And so that question, do you believe God's good, is actually so important for each one of us, because if we do believe that, then what she says here, where she says, everything is for your own best interests. That is what it is for. That is its purpose. That is what it means. It is in recognizing this that your goals become unified. It is in recognizing this that what you see is given meaning. Regarding the goal unification, yesterday's miracle lesson, A Course in Miracles, was I do not perceive my own best interests. And yesterday's lesson was so good for those of you who joined. It was effectively leaning into the fact that, man, when we really take a moment, a relationship, an experience, something that's upsetting to us, and really analyze it, and then we ask, well, what do I wish would happen? All of a sudden we realize, okay, I'm actually wishing for different outcomes that are conflicting each other. I actually am wishing for A, also desires. And so now, building off of yesterday, it's acknowledging, all right, if I can believe that everything that happens is for me and in my best interest, the only way we can believe that is to be divorced from ego. Because ego really is, it's like a cloud. It's its own lens through which we view the world. And ego has such a desire to stick around that it really is predicated in fear that, well, what happens if I let go of ego? I actually left a message for my sister last night. I said that I feel like over the last 6 months, towards the end of 2026, I was really learning how to let go of expectations, let go of timing, let go of even just my own emotions, just letting go and like shedding the layers that have been built up over time. And now I feel like I'm going through a process of letting go of even the physical, like all of my belongings. I sublet my apartment and all my stuff is back there. And it just feels like this season where I'm letting go of a lot of things, and ego is not happy about that. There's a lot of fear attached with that because ego is afraid that we'll let go of it, and ego wants to stick around. And when I'm talking about ego, I'm not talking about there's the Eastern and Western definitions of ego, and I'm more talking about the ego that frankly really prevents us from connection with other people. Ego says, I'm alone, you don't understand. Ego fundamentally separates, and because it's powered in fear, whereas love really binds us together and it unifies our goals. So for the goals that were in conflict yesterday, now when we come to this point of recognizing that, you know what, I can actually trust and believe that what happens is for me, and I don't need to control what happens on the other side, then my goals actually become unified, because the one goal that I have is letting go. Another goal that I would have is peace in whatever happens is for me, and knowledge in that. And that sound bite, my best friend calls them the sound bites. It's effectively narratives that when something happens, when something is upsetting, when something goes wrong, when someone hurts us, what are the sound bites? What are the narratives that we say to ourselves that run through our head? Do we choose them, or are they on autopilot because we inherited them from our parents, from the religious context we grew up in, from our friends, even from social media? Who is influencing the narratives running in the back of our mind when something goes wrong? Are we in the driver's seat? And we talk about this a good bit on the show. Are we in the driver's seat of our lives, or are we in the passenger seat with whoever we're blaming in the driver's seat, or is ego in the driver's seat? I've found that there's not just ego, but also the protector parts of me that can get in the driver's seat too, to try to keep me safe. There's this therapeutic process that I went through for the first time when I was really diving deep into therapy, called IFS, internal family systems. And it talks about how there are different parts of us. There's the protector part, which really is trying to, well, I call them the protectors, but the names in accordance with the system is the manager. And the manager is seeking to literally control everything and try to have everything perfectly organized and systematized. And that really is like the left hemisphere of the brain in some ways. It's, I'm going to keep everything orderly so that you never have to feel the pain that we're trying to protect you from. We're trying to protect the wounded part from coming out, being impacted. And then the other part is called the firefighter. And again, its job is also to protect, but it's in a different way. A lot of times it's distraction. It's ignoring whatever's coming up. It's jokes, comedy, picking up our phones. That is the firefighter that's seeking to distract in order to avoid pain, where the manager is trying to control to avoid pain. And so either one of these parts can be in the driver's seat. And then sometimes the wounded part actually gets in the driver's seat, even though our, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn are all trying to protect us from the wounded part coming to the table. But sometimes the wounded part does come. And then all of a sudden we wonder why we're reduced to the age of 7, 9, 10, 20, the times when we were really hurt in our lives. And all of a sudden it's like, this is so much pain, and I actually feel like I'm out of control. So because we don't know how to engage from a place of vulnerability and be safe at the same time, we shut down all vulnerability to try to keep us safe. So with that, I just want to take a quick pause and jump on here and say hello to folks in the chat. Sammy P, thank you. I'm so glad you joined. Thank you for your encouragement. K.I. Yay. Oh, my dad is wonderful. He actually is the third generation of our family painting business, started in 1922, and I'm just so incredibly proud of him. If you're real, pinch your cheek. All right. Do it for the chat. I did it. Not Diego. Oh, wow. Sammy, he said, I really am struggling being the anniversary of my neck being so badly broken. I'm now a C2, complete quadriplegic, and I'm ventilator dependent and have no voluntary movement or feeling below my chin. Wow. Sammy, I am so incredibly sorry. So is today the anniversary? Wow. Y'all, Sammy, I thank you so much for sharing that. Y'all, this is why, we're here. This is why we join on here and come together to honestly do life less alone. There's not a lot of, I'm sure that there are, conversations around emotional intelligence. And I know that when I really desperately needed it, I didn't find it in the church. I didn't find it in my family. I didn't find it with my friends. And it really was a lonely journey. Even AOTN, you said, shut down your vulnerability, give your enemies no time to relax. That is so much of the narrative around, like, shut down your emotion and get on defense and protect yourself. And there's something around, can we learn how to be safe with ourselves first? Because you're right. To be honest, if we don't know how to maintain a safe distance from people who have hurt us, and we just wear vulnerability in our sleeve, that actually positions us to fundamentally be at risk of pain all the time. And so, Sammy, I'm just thinking about what you said, about the fact that, this is the anniversary where you broke your neck and became a quadriplegic. And I just, like, the fact you're here is such an honor for all of us. I know that some of us are in the chat talking about different things, and I just want to thank you for doing the work. Like, this is doing the work. The cultivation of our souls is just as important as the cultivation of our minds. And we're only taught how to cultivate our minds. We're only taught how to do that from, literally 4 or 5 years old, we're taught to read, then we're taught the ABCs, and then we're taught, simple math, but we're not taught how to do simple relationships. We're not taught how to actually literally take care of our body. And to the point, Sammy, where it's like struggling with, I can't imagine how painful that is too. There's just so much with being a quadriplegic, and I'm so grateful that you shared that. And there's something I want to do at the end of the show for you. But I really am honored that you're here. And I hope all of us here in the chat can actually be so kind. I know Jake B says, much love, Sammy. It's really the fact that you're here and you're showing up and you're taking responsibility for your life. I'm sure that there's so much to move through and so much to process. And another reason why it's actually important to be in touch with what's going on inside of us in our soul, because otherwise that will corrode and erode us from the inside out. And, Viktor Frankl, I mentioned this last night because I'll go live in the morning and then also in the evening. He was in Auschwitz and his wife had been taken to the gas chambers and was dead. His entire world was taken from him. And he said, you can take everything from me, but the one thing you cannot take is my choice in how I respond. And he said that is the greatest of all human freedoms. And so, Sammy, the fact that you're here today, I feel so, there's a concept of conviction where it's like something pierces you inside and you're like, you kind of wake up a little bit more. And so you showing up and you doing this today is doing that for me. And I hope for other people, because it is remarkable. None of us know what it's like to be a quadriplegic. And the fact that you're here I just hope you feel really proud of yourself. And I hope you feel a little more seen today than you did before. So thank you for joining us. Yes, Jake B says, great book. That book is so good. Creator of logotherapy. I actually don't know about that. I'm going to have to look into that. I'm just looking here in the chat. Flooring constantly. Thank you for coming on here. I'm from Gaithersburg, Maryland, and I have a place in Northern Virginia. Walken, Chaz. I know. So, Sammy, if you're still here, Chaz says that's rough, really freaking rough. God bless you, Sammy. Keep going and keep recovering. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad. Guys, this is why we're here, truly. Bookworm says, Sammy, thank you for being here. Love from India. I love that. And Adam says, what year was that? 1940s, right? Yes, and I don't know exactly what year he wrote the book. AOTN. What's interesting? Azul says, my friend is quadriplegic. Y'all, this is a whole other level, I just get chills thinking about it. This is a whole other level because it's so easy to complain and focus on what's hard for us. And that doesn't mean that we don't recognize what's hard in our own lives, but it just adds perspective. It helps us zoom out and be like, oh, okay. Like my life isn't that hard, there's just a lot of perspective that comes in. And I just hope all of us remember how good we have it in so many ways. And Sammy, I hope you also realize that how loved you are and how supported you are. And this is exactly why we come together. Morgan, thank you for joining, the great one. Sender V, you're in Norfolk. Oh, nice. I've been there one time. My sister joined the military, and that was her first station. AOTN, you said, meanwhile, there's a mental health crisis in our country and psychologists keep quiet like crickets. You know what I'd love to consider, and this is not, I think this is not this is not mainstream, I guess you could say. I don't think that this is of popular opinion. So I'd love to just dialogue with you all about it. When I went through losing my brother-in-law when he was killed, and then when I went through, it's like I watched my brother-in-law lose his family because his life was taken from him. He was killed by a drunk driver going the opposite direction on the Houston interstate, and his baby girl was 3 weeks old. My sister was 26, and then 8 years later, 7 years later, my husband leaves. And so it was like my sister lost her husband by death, and I lost my husband by his own choosing. And it was just, she and I were just looking at each other like, what is going on? Like, it just was crazy and so, so painful. And I realized, yes, I was in therapy, and it was actually really helpful. I will say that. And so much of my healing came from my own pursuit of health. So much of my healing came from almost like internally sourcing it, going and there's multiple things. I actually was talking to a friend last night about maybe doing a workshop around just knowing, like, what were the practical things that I did to really heal? Because what I found, y'all, is that we have to heal on our own. We have to heal ourselves. People have been in therapy for 10, 15 years. To your point, it's like, what's the use? AOTN, that's effectively what you're saying. Like, there's therapists in abundance, psychologists in abundance, and we live in just like this mental health epidemic. And this is my theory, is that it's because we haven't assumed radical responsibility for ourselves. And we also don't know how. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to go inward. And so I kind of had to like figure it out. And for me, I figured it out with brokenness being the pathway inward. And other people have asked me, do you think that you can access those deep parts of you without pain? And I think yes. And it's actually harder to access the inner world and the inner parts of you apart from pain, apart from brokenness. There's something about when you are broken and you let brokenness have its work or do its work and do its job, you're broken open. And then you can see what's inside. And that was my experience, was I allowed myself, because when my brother-in-law was first killed, I didn't let myself do that. I didn't let myself get broken open. So I was walking around like trying to keep the broken parts of me in place when I was just like dying on the inside. And this is why we need to go inward, because otherwise it does eat away at us. And so when I allowed myself to be broken open, that was the time that I could look inside and be like, oh, I had no idea who I was, how I was, what I was created for in the first place. I said that on Sundays we talk about spiritual intelligence, and I believe every single one of us, Sammy, especially you, because I find that those with the greatest pain often have the greatest purpose. And with our purpose, then we find, like, and I'm not trying to have all this alliteration with the P's, but it's the thing about the passion that comes when we realize our purpose. Like, I realized knowing was my purpose once I came to realize how much pain I held around not knowing how did we end up here, not knowing myself, not knowing how in the world I could have done better to try to save our marriage. And so much of that was because I wasn't emotionally intelligent. I wasn't living awake. Yes, I was very intellectually intelligent, as most of us are, but I had no connection to my soul. So I was walking around as half a person, half a human, because I had never taken the time to know me. And so when we come to cultivate it's like the right part of us, and 50% of us, all of a sudden, man, last night, I think it was Brian asked, what's the difference between living versus existing? And man, when we move from, okay, now I'm going to live fully, now I'm going to turn on both parts of me, that's when we really start to live. That's when we really start to experience life in every dimension and all the colors and various elements of life. So every single one of us has a purpose. I believe that so much. And there's an ability to experience passion. Joni Eareckson Tada was a quadriplegic, and she was 17 years old and dove into the lake, and she didn't know it was so shallow and broke her neck. And there's this movie. It's interesting. I grew up watching this film, and it was an acted out version, probably a movie done in the 80s or 90s. And it's her story where she's laying in the hospital bed for like, I think a month or two, maybe 3, and just staring up at the ceiling, not able to do anything. And like the wars that we experience in our mind, this is part of the reason why we do A Course in Miracles every single morning, because it is about learning to contend with our own selves, having the ego confront the child of God in us. And who's going to win? Who's going to win in this battle and war for our souls? And to the point of knowing how to fight, this is why we're all doing it together, because we really do need each other. So I'm just jumping back to the chat here. Oh, the great one. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Yes. Christopher Adams, you said there's stimulus and a response, and the space in between is your power to choose the response. That's so true. So this power of choice really is, to Viktor Frankl's point, the greatest of all human freedoms. There's a stimulus every day, every moment. There's a stimulus. How am I going to respond? And frankly, how we respond is all predicated in choice, and our choice is predicated in our beliefs. What's our belief system? So like we actually have to back up before we can make a choice that we're proud of. What do I believe? What do I believe about God? What do I believe about myself, the world? And so asking and questioning our belief system is actually really important. I started out earlier where I said, my dad told me when I was 17, I was probably 20. He said, if you can just believe that God is good. And so that's the question. Can I believe God's good? In the midst of this broken world, can I believe that? And that choice then thereafter, right? If I believe everything's for us and there's a purpose to my life, and that I'm not just a walking or sitting accident, then there has to be a purpose, there has to be meaning. And perhaps it's more so me figuring it out, me doing the work to figure it out, rather than me sitting complacent, blaming everyone and everything, shaking my fists at the heavens. However, sometimes we actually do really need to shake our fists at the heavens, but from a genuine place, like pouring out our soul, not just keeping it bottled in, arms crossed, being like, God, how could you? Instead, it's an active pursuit. It's an active pouring out and lamenting. Oh man, I just got chills thinking about this. It's lamenting of the soul, the grief that's in there, the pain that's in there, the depth of sorrow. And for those of you who have experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. There was a moment after my husband left where I was at a networking event for one of my clients. I have a branding and marketing business. And at the end of the day, I went to my hotel room and I was getting ready for bed, and I just started like weeping, like the ugly kind, where it's like your whole body is weeping. And I remember I had my hands on the sink. And at one point I was like, am I gonna break the sink? Because I'm like, it was just so intense. And there's almost like a violent outpouring, and that needs to happen, y'all. For so long as we don't pour it out, it stays in us. We are a living cemetery of a dead soul until we let it out, and then we can come alive. The first step is to pour out and know what's inside the container of our soul, and then we get to install new beliefs, install new programs, teach ourselves according to who we want to be. There's freedom on the other side. And then we get to really take up the power of choice. But usually that pouring out process is the first step. So just really fast, I decided to do this. I was doing a presentation since I'm a marketer, I had a conversation earlier this week with the digital marketer community. I was teaching them just some things I was working on. And I decided just like 10 minutes beforehand to do a 61-day challenge. Because again, we're doing this together. We're doing life together. And I wanted to invite you all to join. Y'all, this is something that really is so meaningful to me. And I don't want this to be something that is just like a throwaway. Like I only want people who are going to do the work. So I don't know if you guys can see the link that I just dropped in the chat. Like I can see your chats, but I don't know if you can see mine. So I dropped the link here for anybody who wants to join. If you go to my website, ChristeneMarie.com, and then /61-day-challenge. So ChristeneMarie.com, make sure you do the / and then 61-day challenge. And this is where, y'all, you get to decide what it is that you want. Like, what do you want in life right now? What do you want to pursue? What do you want to grow in? And we were talking about this the other day. There's different categories of our life. There's financial, there's relational, there's emotional, there's spiritual. What do you want to heal? What do you want to grow in? What do you want to pursue? What do you want to strengthen? What do you want to change? And this 61 days, one, it takes 60 days to create a habit. So that 61st day is your choice to keep going if you like the habit or not. And then also, this is really our time to do this together as a community. So we're actually meeting today at 5 o'clock, 5 Eastern, before the evening knowing show. And we'll jump on and we'll talk through what is the one thing that I really want to strengthen in my life? What am I called to? And then we'll identify from there, like, okay, this is the one thing I'm going to do every single day in the 61-day challenge. So in the form, folks have been filling out this form. Let me hop over here. It's just your first name, last name, phone, or email. And I ask for your phone number because we're actually going to do a WhatsApp group where every single day we're keeping each other accountable. And I say, what's your one thing? And so that's like, what are you called to? Like, what is the thing in your life that you feel most called to right now or in terms of your mission? And then this is the 5 p.m. Eastern. And then would you like, this is my question for you guys. Would it be helpful if we met weekly? In addition to the WhatsApp group. And some people have said yes, some people say no because they're super busy. And then you can put additional comments here. And then legally, you just have to sign this so that you don't sue me for sending you an email. I would love to have you. This whole concept of doing life together and doing the work together is really, it's so important. You know, Sammy, you came on earlier and just experienced a lot of love because you spoke the truth. And that's exactly what it's supposed to be like. We're supposed to be doing life together and not feeling so alone. I just want to go back through the chat here. Burke, yeah, 61 days is a lot. If I could do anything consistently for 61 days, I could probably get used to it. I feel that so much, y'all. I started going live in June 23rd, 2020. So I'm now 216 days going live. I've never done anything this consistently in my life, but it started with just a short-term goal. I was like, okay, June 23rd, I was like, I'm going to go live until my birthday. So it was a little bit over 30 days. And I was like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. I just want to like try to see if I can keep my word to myself. So there's multi-layered reasons for why we're doing this 61-day challenge. One is just, do we have trust in our own word to ourselves? Can we do the thing that we know we should? Like, I just felt like I should go live and I didn't know what it would become. Frankly, it's been such I've learned so much. I've learned a lot about freaking ego and like people can say mean things to me and it's okay. I'll be fine. I've learned a lot about doing what I know is right. I've been advised by other entrepreneurs, don't go live every day because, you know, you want to keep the lure factor. And I'm like, I'm going live for me and whoever else wants to come along. Like, I'm not going live to get, you know, thousands and thousands of people joining. I'm going live for intimate conversations like this. You know, I was going live to keep my word to myself. So it was a lesson on don't listen to other people who have different targets than you and me. Really, it's like a horse with blinders. Where am I going? What's my goal? Have my values on one side and boundaries on the other, and let's freaking go get it. So this 61-day challenge, if you don't know what it is yet, feel free to just show up today at 5. The 3 kind of things that I'm asking for, and actually I'm pulling up my Facebook because I posted about this the other day, and I just want to make sure that I remember exactly what I said. I'm going to have rules of engagement later today as we chat, because frankly, it's important to me that we all are on the same page as we move forward. So let me see. Where is this? All right. Oh, I'm live. I see myself. That's so funny. Okay, so I am pulling up the post. These are the 3 things that I would ask from you. 1, as long as you're committed to 1 radical responsibility of going inward and owning what it is that you find, what you see, owning the 61-day challenge, owning your commitments and not blaming other people. And then 2, doing the non-sexy work. The goal is that we pick one thing. Going live every single day for me for 216 days, especially y'all at the very beginning when it was like hardly anybody joined and it was kind of, you know, I had to just keep going and not look at the views, not look at the vanity metrics. Because again, why am I doing this? Do we know our why clearly enough to keep us motivated when other people externally are telling us to stop? So am I strong enough internally? Am I internally sourced or am I externally sourced enough to do the non-sexy work to keep me going and keep me heading in the direction I know I need to go? Number 3, encouraging and holding others accountable. So I am, the ideal is that we are active in the community. And community, I'm saying WhatsApp group. Like we'll have a WhatsApp group where we'll actually be posting every single day if we're doing the work and if we are showing up. So every single one of us is going to pick one thing and then keep each other accountable. So that's the link. I'll post it one more time. Y'all, I'm so grateful one of you coming on here. You're blessing me. My mission that I just feel so called to. I'll actually read it to you because someone told me yesterday, they were like, I want to join your mission. And that was just the most humbling, meaningful thing. My mission is this. My mission is to transform 1,000 leaders whose influence naturally multiplies. Like healed leadership ripple outward into hundreds of thousands of lives. So I'm like, okay, if 1,000 people who are committed, who are willing to experience change, because I know, y'all, there have been relationships in my family that I'm like, oh man, I would love to see someone else change or something. But man, if I'm not doing the work, how in the world could I ever see any positive change with those around me if I don't start leading from within by example? It's so easy to sit and complain and point the finger and be the critic versus being the man in the arena that Theodore Roosevelt talks about. And I'm actually going to pull that up and just read through that speech. Not the whole thing. It's very, very long. Y'all, it is so powerful. Citizens in Speech. It is just, I read it for the first time this summer and it just blew me away. And I'm going to be reading, yes, the section, the man in the arena, but also before that, it's so powerful leading up to it. Okay, here we go. All right. I'm just finding it. This is a long speech. Okay. It behooves us to do our best to see that the standard of the average citizen is kept high, and the average cannot be kept high unless the standard of the leaders is very much higher. It is well if a large portion of the leaders in any republic, in any democracy, are, as a matter of course, drawn from the classes represented in this audience today, but only provided that those classes possesses the gift of sympathy with plain people and of devotion to great ideals. You and those like you have received special advantages. You have, all of you, had the opportunity for mental training. Many of you have had leisure. Most of you had a chance for the enjoyment of life far greater than comes to the majority of your fellows. Kind, much has been given, and much of you should be expected, against which it is especially incumbent that both men of trained and cultivated intellect and men of inherited wealth and position should especially guard themselves, because to these failings they are especially liable, and if yielded to your chances of useful service are at an end. Let the men of learning, the man of lettered leisure, beware of that queer and cheap temptation to pose to himself and to others as the cynic, as the man who has outgrown emotions and beliefs, the man to whom good and evil are as one. The poorest way to face life is to face it with a sneer. There are many men who feel a kind of twisted pride and cynicism. There are many who confine themselves to criticism of the way others do what they themselves dare not even attempt. There is no more unhealthy being, no man less worthy of respect than he who either really holds or feigns to hold an attitude of sneering disbelief toward all that is great and lofty, whether in achievement or in that noble effort, which, even if it fails, comes second to achievement. A cynical habit of thought and speech, a readiness to criticize work which the critic himself never tries to perform, an intellectual aloofness which will not accept contact with life's realities. All of these are marks, not as the possessor would feign to think of superiority, but of weakness. They mark the men unfit to bear their part manfully in the stern striving of living, who seek in the affectation of contempt for the achievements of others to hide from others and from themselves their own weakness. The role is easy. There is none easier, save for the role of the man who sneers alike at both criticism and performance. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never tasted victory nor defeat. Y'all, what a way to end today. Man, that speech, I just have chills all over. I just want to reread lesson 24. I do not perceive my own interests. Y'all, once we let go of the fact that maybe what we're seeing, we're not seeing clearly. No, that's yesterday's. I'm sorry. Lesson 25. I do not know what anything is for. Y'all, once we let go of that element of, oh, I see clearly, I know everything that's going on, I've got my own best interest at heart, and once we can really let that go and just be curious and really trust that everything is for us, I think we'll experience a better and more beautiful world, and we'll also come to know who we are on the other side of brokenness and in brokenness. You know, the man in the arena, we're doing the work right now. Each one of you, those of you who have taken this seriously and who are showing up, you're in the arena. And I hope you really genuinely feel proud of yourself. There's something about self-administering dopamine hits of patting on the back and saying, good job, I'm doing the work. I'm showing up. I'm being who I want to be. I'm taking accountability. I'm taking this seriously. I'm taking this world and this life seriously. And so once we start doing that, tap yourself on the back. Like, give yourself the dopamine hits, and we shouldn't be relying on this for dopamine hits. And we do. We get the doom scrolling is dopamine in so many ways. So we get the opportunity and the privilege to self-administer dopamine hits and to be internally sourced in so many ways. I'm just taking a look here at the chat before I move forward. The channel, this was very on point for me. I have to start being vulnerable and show my negative traits. I don't know what that means at the end, but yeah, start being vulnerable. I love that. That's vulnerable in and of itself. So you're already on the right track. I really, really love that. Andrew Lisa Robinson, thank you for joining. I'm not sure what Morgan said. I'm trying to go up to the chat. The great one. Thanks for coming. Simon, isn't that just incredible? I love that quote so much. It was so beautifully said. Yes, the great one. Yeah, that was Theodore Roosevelt. C. Martin, love, visualization, goal setting, positive self-talk, relaxation techniques. I love that you said relaxation techniques and mindfulness. Yeah, honestly, the relaxation, I actually just bought a book about how to I want to dive into that, because I know that like deep breathing is something that's so important to like really kind of settle us and like calm us down, and being able to learn how to, again, guys, this is all about us sitting in the driver's seat. So knowing how to be the one that can self-administer dopamine, that can self-administer relaxation. The channel, I just responded to your comment. Where was this written? This was written by Theodore Roosevelt, and I just dropped the link to the chat. It was so good. All right. Adam F, right on. I love it. I love Theodore Roosevelt. I love this conversation. AOTN. Don't be ashamed of who you are. Yes. Y'all, isn't that so, oh, I'm so glad you said that. Yeah. Walk in freedom. Literally walk in the power of being integrated with the IQ and EQ turned on. And man, I know that there's so much here for all of us today. So going back to the lesson, I do not know what anything is for, and just letting go, just being curious about what happens, just being curious about what a deeper meaning could be. And again, this is just about getting to the baseline. Like, just do the practice and do the work. It's 6 times today for 2 minutes, so it's actually a little bit long. But I'm going to be setting my alarm 6 different times. And we just look about us slowly, like, I don't know what this is for. And what I even just had a thought is that as I'm acknowledging I don't know what things are for, the meaning is going to become that much more rich as it reveals itself. So, and when I say it reveals itself, I think that there's something, I said Sundays are for spiritual intelligence. God really reveals things to us. We get to learn from God and be taught from within. The Latin root of intuition is intuere, to be taught from within. We all have so much. There's so much of like this treasure trove inside. And it's this beautiful exploration of our souls. And we get to, when we think of Plato and Socrates and all these incredible Stoics, we look back and we're like, wow, how did you know that? And somebody had to start it. And yes, the inputs are helpful to help form belief systems and all of that. But since our beliefs inform our choices, which is the greatest of all human freedom, we have to analyze, what do I believe? And we have to go inward. Yes, we can be influenced by other people, but the goal is that we're internally sourced, and God and us are making the choice of our life and how we show up, that we're an active participant in this beautiful story of life. So with that, thank you so much for joining today. Morgan Brooking, thanks for coming on. Luis, I do, the great one. Thanks for coming on. Dazed Music, AOTN. Guys, thanks for coming on here tonight. Or this morning. I'm going live at 5 p.m. for those who want to do the work and do the 61-day challenge. The link to that is here if you guys want to join the challenge. And then, I actually don't even know what a Scientologist is. So no, I'm not. But I'm going live at 5 p.m. And then I'm not going live. I'm going on with the group who's going to be doing the 61-day challenge. And then I'll be going live again at 8:30 p.m. for the Knowing Show. So with that, thank you all so much for joining. I hope you have